What's going on, guys? Reisshub back with another video. In today's video, I want to talk about my wish list for Season 7, which is going to be starting in a couple weeks' time. I think it's the 8th or 9th. I actually don't know the date specifically, so I want to go over all the things that I'm looking for. So, chest spawn rates and ways to make the game better for contested versus uncontested players, FNCS formats, map changes I'm looking at, crafting makeshift, the shotgun meta, the scrims that we put in, and also arena and the changes I want to make to that. So let's just dive straight into the good stuff. So far, chest spawns is something that's irritated me quite a lot this season, and I'm going to go into a little bit deeper why, and actually is more the way it intertwines with trios, because the way when you're playing trios, you essentially need to win your region roughly 8 chests per person. So if you do the maths, so we can do a quick up here, that's 24 chests total per team if you want to be able to actually win enough region. Now, you can do it on less, you can do it on more, but across the last 3 seasons, this is kind of the stats I've been taking from winners of each region from the finals. So roughly 8 per person, and when I've gone through solo cash cups and checked the same looting paths, it roughly aligns with this season as well, so I'm thinking that's still a good guideline. If you look at pretty much any drop spot that's out there, there's not enough to loot for 2 trios and to both teams get 8 chests, which means they have to fight, which means that basically if you're contested, you can't disengage, you can't do anything good like that. So it basically creates this really awkward scenario where when I look at top level teams and I see they're contested, you instantly go, well, they're probably not winning the region, and that itself is very anti-competitive. Now, there's only a couple ways you could change this. Firstly, changing trios to duos allows for teams to split drops a little bit easier. You can take a lot more kind of poverty looting paths as well and still have enough chests. But I don't think that's the solution, because realistically we're currently on trios for the rest of the year, so for next season I'm not going to be talking about that. So either a change to the map where there's more loot, which there's already more this season, and it create a couple more around like this center of map and things like that, or generally just 100% chest spawns. I want this all the time. Everyone knows realistically that anyone who looks at the game competitively and is a fan wants 100% chest spawns for a lot of these reasons. In particular, just for stuff like this, you can have more chests in those kind of more guaranteed chest spawns in those POIs and be able to disengage better. I think it's overall just such a better idea for the game to have. I don't think we need too much explanation on why 100% chest spawns is really, really good for the game as well. So let's look onto like the FNCS format and how I want to change that. Well, right now, honestly, I don't really see any changes I want to make. There's probably minor bits here and there with maybe point format, which I haven't thought too deeply into this moment. The biggest one probably actually being in the round 4s and the finals, where there's a 24 to 17th to get 5 points. I don't really know why that's in the game. I think that should probably remove the format and just distribute it evenly. But outside of that, I think the qualifiers were good. Especially in EU, the high level of qualifiers, and were very, very exciting to watch. The round 4s every week, they meant something that teams need to get top 3. The semi-finals, aka the heats, was really, really interesting as well. Really, really good to watch. Maybe what I would change with the heats is change it to 2 heats rather than 3, just so that there's a smaller bracket, and I don't really think 3 is required. It's really hard to follow. I don't really think you need as many teams there. It's better to narrow it down and kind of cut out maybe a little bit more from each heat instead. I think that potentially would be a bit more interesting. Reboot round, I was really worried about how good the reboot round would be with 3 games rather than 1, but it actually ended up being really, really interesting because, you know, each game added to itself. I felt like the early and mid games of the earlier games was kind of boring, but as soon as I got to end game, each match was super, super interesting. So overall format, I actually think was really, really good. I would potentially say it needs to be different depending on which region you're on as well, because smaller regions like OCE, having the top teams not be there makes the qualifiers really boring, I think. I saw Coach Timmy talk a lot about this. EU, we didn't have that issue because there's such a huge depth of competition, because obviously it is the largest region, but I definitely think maybe some changes need to be made to the smaller regions just to make them easier to follow and just generally a bit more interesting earlier on. So let's get onto some of the map changes. So the first thing is the middle of the map. I actually really like that they changed such like a large volume. When I looked at the map initially changing, it didn't seem like there was too much change, but there's actually overall quite a lot different about the map when going from season 4 to season 5. From season 5 to season 6, one of the biggest issues is that this mid-map and the new kind of Primal area just has no metal at all. It's so barren of metal in so many of these center map areas that it's just really makes teams struggle if they have to rotate for their metal at all. You're really limited if you land at the Spire, where you're going to get your metal from. If you land at Colossal Crops, where you're going to get your metal from as well. There's one building, which I can't remember if it just has enough out to the east, if it just has enough to get your full metal stack for your full trio. Can't quite remember, but either way, a lot of these mid-map spots are really bad for metal. And if you go from a POI like Coral Castle, then you have to get your metal potentially on the plane or some of these areas around like in Shark and stuff. But if you don't get that and you have to rotate to get your metal somewhere else, there's just nowhere you can get it from. If you don't have metal in your early game, there's just no option for you to be able to get it anywhere. With the next season apparently being space or alien themed, maybe there'll be a lot of metal. I just presume there might be a lot of metal on the map, so this hopefully should change that. But again, I kind of alluded to some of the other things I want to change, which is that top left corner of the map. Right now, for competitive, Coral Castle is one of the worst drop spots available outside of Camp Cod, but Coral Castle right now is very bad, and pretty much any team that lands there, you can just tick off they're not going to do that well. It takes so long to loot, the metal takes a long time to get, the rotations in there are really bad because you have to rotate past some top teams in top other locations. Overall, it's just not a good spot to go through. A lot of times you get tunnel visioned into the kind of water areas too. Not a good drop spot. Barely any teams, I think, in the last 3-4 seasons, since ever it was introduced, have done well from that drop spot in stacked finals tournaments. And I think it's about enough time. It's about time, honestly, where I stop looking at that area of the map and go, oh, they're not going to do well. We should just put something good in that corner with some good mobility, and hopefully they can kind of perform out of that next season. Crafting and makeshifts. So, crafting and makeshifts. For the start, actually, with makeshifts first. Makeshifts has been a change to the game, which, when I saw initially, thought this was very boring. When I started playing, I thought it was actually a little bit more of an interesting dynamic because it does allow a lot of the players to get a huge amount of loot on the map. 100%, because really wherever you get, all you need to do is get a makeshift, find a couple cars, and you can have yourself like a good pump shotgun from wherever you are. So I do allow that, but I definitely think it still slows down the average gameplay too much. The average arena match, the average like pub match, which I haven't been playing, but the average like scrim, when you're not looking at like a high level tournament, like a finals, it just becomes much less interesting generally, and it slows down the pace of the early game tons. And you know, I'm not a big fan of the makeshift generally. From crafting, I think crafting would be really cool to keep in, but again, without the makeshift. So if you're potentially able to craft just by kind of either upgrading, potentially maybe not, might be way too powerful, just the way I'm thinking of it, but also side grading. Side grading was something that was really cool, switching from like an AR to a kind of, well, what was it at the time? Was it an AK at the time? Or a heavy AR? So being able to like switch back and forth between that, which using side or crafting would be cool. It would be an interesting mechanic which wouldn't be required to do well, allow us to be able to get better loot. I think that's probably a good way, but overall, makeshifts, not been a big fan of those at all. Same with like bows. I'm guessing all the Primal stuff will go, which makes me think that snipers will come back next season, which again, I actually really liked having no snipers until the bow was buffed. So there was like, there was a lot of good things happening in the Primal season, but I think we're ready to move on to next season for some of these weapons and meta changes. To shotgun meta when we're talking about these. So this season, pump, I like pump. A lot of people, I was talking to my chat about this before, they were saying, yo, you want levers back? I don't think the lever will return because the lever was a very themed weapon from what I understand, right? If you look at it in season 4, it was a very Western theme for the locations that it dropped from. So do I see that coming back? Probably, unless we had another theme season like that again, which is unlikely. So I doubt we'll see that one back. My personal favorite shotgun meta is pump charge. I think when you have pump charge only, both shotguns are really viable. I think it was the start of season 4 we had that. So both shotguns become very viable. None are really weak. Both are really strong. I think with the recent changes to the pump this season, the balance out that it has, I think this would work even better. So yeah, again, I think this is probably the best change. And if you're gonna add tax, what I don't like with a tactical shotgun, especially because we're running trios as the main competitive mode, is purple and gold tax and the huge amount of damage they do to structures. I'm very happy to have green and blue tax. I think they are weak in comparison to the pump, but they have their place, which is great. As soon as you start moving up to purple and gold tax, If multiple people in your trio have them, aka they're too easy to get, which they're not in the current season because they're very rare in this current season right now, so it's not so bad. But if they're very easy to get, a lot of fights just become shoot at the wall, shoot at the wall, shoot at the wall, shoot at the wall. They're not a huge amount of box fighting focus, right? It becomes a lot of focus on just like, can we get on the walls? Can we spray the walls with our attacks? Can we get in? Spam, spam, spam. It becomes a lot less skilled when the teams get on, and you have a real advantage if you're a team who's aggressive in comparison to a team who's defensive, because the aggressive teams can just spray into your box very, very easily. It's not a weapon that I want to see return next season, but it's already in this season. It's been back a lot, and I think a lot of the casual base likes it, so I guess we'll probably see the purple and gold tax return again. But again, I do hope that if the tactical shotgun return, it's only underneath the purple, so blue, green, and maybe grey if they take them back in as well. Another thing I want to see next season, really, really good, was the scrims. So I had this idea. I actually think I responded to Aussie Antics when he was talking about making this video on his Twitter, and the open and aura scrims that they tested for, I think it was 2 weeks this season, had a huge amount of potential, and I think the changes they made to them in the end made them really, really stacked. So if they manage to implement this next season consistently with high quality games, that would be fantastic. This is one of the things I really, really want. So on, say, like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, I think that's what they had it this season. Every single week, you can play a tournament for 2 hours and get high quality games. I think they were looking at, I think there was like on the leaderboards, like a weekly leaderboard. I don't know if that's correct or not, but if there was like a daily and a weekly leaderboard, and then the weekly leaderboard, imagine the top 33 teams play like a practice tournament on like a Friday or something instead, right? And even if it's for cash prize, maybe not for cash prize, something like that, that still gives more opportunity for practice on that Friday. Friday's probably not a good day because FNCS Opens has historically been on the Friday, but you know what I mean? It gives you access to like another tournament that you could play instead of the scrim days, which would be really, really cool. Or maybe it's like the top 2 from the Tuesday and the Wednesday, and then on the Thursday you play the practice tournament or something like that. So I really, really hope that these open and aura scrims are successful. They look really, really cool. They have a ton of potential, and arena is really boring in comparison. They don't have high quality games at all, so having an in-game scrim function like this, that if it works, would be really, really cool. And talking of boring arena, let's move on to the final thing I want changed, arena. For many, many seasons, I've wanted arena to change. Arena, essentially Soul Arena hasn't changed since World Cup, which was nearly 2 years ago. Or maybe 2 years ago. I don't know when Arena was actually implemented. Probably over 2 years ago now that I think about it. Arena has so much potential, and it's just not what it should be at all. If we're having the scrims in, okay, it's fine. It doesn't need to be. But at the same time, like, even if it was 20 moving, 15 moving games on average generally, that'd be so much more interesting than it just being 1, 2, 3 people on an arena end game moving. I think the point format, we already know that point formats for low-level tournaments have a huge focus now on, say, Solo Cash Cups, for example, on placement rather than eliminations. Solo Cash Cup, in order to get enough eliminations to equal the points from a Victory Royale, you need 30. Whereas currently in this, it's just 10 in Arena, and no one plays properly in Arena at all. And I think there are many, many changes you could see. Firstly, the placement being better in terms of the format just being way more placement heavy for Soul Arena. People would complain about it, but at the same time, we need some high quality games somewhere. And if the scrims don't work, then I want it to be an Arena. If the scrims are there, I don't really care. We can use Arena for just W key practice, but I'd rather have 24/7 good practice for, well, I'll say EU, but some of these larger regions, it'll work a lot better on. Some of these smaller regions, you have to consider queue timing and all that kind of stuff. But let's be real, if you could load into Arena, it was placement format a little bit more. The players weren't just a stupid W key 24/7. You would play Arena way more. I know I would. If I could get an almost competition standard game every single match, that'd be amazing. Plus, if you had weekly leaderboards or daily leaderboards where you got prizes for, hopefully something that doesn't incentivize just playing 24/7 all the time, because I don't necessarily think that's the right way. That's why the weekly leaderboards of the scrims would work well, because it's only like 2 sessions over a week or something, or 3 sessions over a week or something like that. Whereas Arena, a lot of the issues you run into with leaderboards is that it quite literally is who plays the most, not necessarily who is the best or anything like that. But I still think there should be more incentives for Arena. Even take those 100 Arena grinders and give them a solo tournament. Give some sort of incentive for people to play Arena outside of the fact that they need to get their champs once and then they stop playing for the rest of the season. Hopefully some sort of changes to Arena come out, because if not, it's just going to be another disappointing season of, oh, we play Arena to start with, you get to the good level players, everyone keys, the games get boring, we stop playing arena. You know, it's the natural progression of the arena cycle, we will say. Thank you for listening to me ramble again. Peace.